'Tis the darkest glyph thou bearest, it sacrifices stray souls to summon unearthly force. Unearthly force shall obey and serve thee. 'Tis named Chaos Legion.
Chaos Legion is an action game released by Capcom in 2003 for the PC and PS2. Whenever someone talks about Capcom action games from that generation, you can always hear DMC, Beautiful Joe, God Hand, Okami, and Resident Evil 4, but I never really hear Chaos Legion, and I'm not sure why. It's got great music, corny dialogue, a cliched story, and a fantastic combat system that is a mix between Dynasty Warriors, DMC, and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. It was even produced by Mr. Ono, so you'd think the fans of this cross-dressing scamp would know a few more of his games outside of Street Fighter. In the game, you play as
The Knight of the Dark Glyphs, Zeke Varheim,
who is able to utilize souls in order to summon demons into our world to fight against other demons, also known as a Legionator. His best friend is on a revenge kick after his high school crush died seemingly by our hands, and means to do so by collecting 3 sacred glyphs in order to kill everyone, because if no one is alive, no one can suffer. Awesome. Along the way, Zeke meets a nun with guns, and the two team up to take down Not Sephiroth. I would bash the voice actors for their poor delivery, but it's not their fault. I doubt anyone could make these lines sound believable.
I'm alive.
You're alive. The city was destroyed and seized last night by an unknown attacker. Unfortunately, no survivors have been reported. Also what? There aren't any bodies. None at all. Not even a blood stain. Only the remains of the charred city. And a message that was scrawled on the castle's wall in blood. It says,
I thought you said that there wasn't any blood stains. The only one I have issue with is the narrator, whose southern accent slowly starts creeping into his delivery, and he takes an absolute age to say a few sentences.
Sets out on a journey to fellow man whom he once called a friend. In the shadows on a street corner, in an abandoned town, the dark, insidious malice awaits the night.
As is common with Capcom games, we have a fantastic soundtrack. Each stage has a unique song, and each one is rocking its mixture of choir choruses and rock and roll. A perfect fit for the monster slashing and demon summoning. An extra layer of music is even added when you have your Legion summons, which is a nice touch. And finally, after you beat the game, your reward for all those lost lives and constant grinding to get the most powerful Legion is a cheesy rock ballad in glorious English. When this song first came on, I burst into laughter and watched in awe as the credits were filled with little clips of the song being made. Not the game, just the song, almost as if the song was the reason this game was made in the first place. Using the sword is not particularly difficult. You get a standard 3-hit combo that leaves you open if you complete it, and an attack when you're ascending and descending. However, you can cancel the first few hits of your combo into other assists, and can even use the lock-on to create an infinite, as the lock-on temporarily stuns an enemy. Even your lock-on is cool, as it takes the form of a bolt of lightning that the player casts at an enemy, which I just love. Usually in games with lock-ons, it's never explained in the context of the game, it's just a button the player presses that makes the character focus on a particular target. I think games that are trying to invoke style via its combat could benefit greatly by giving context to gameplay mechanics. Now, this game is Chaos Legion after all, so it's about time I talk about them. Legions are monsters you summon in battle. You're allowed 2 every level, and depending which ones you pick will determine how you play the levels. For example, some enemies are weak to certain legions, and others aren't. Each Legion gains XP and levels independently from one another. You can spend your XP to increase their attack, defense, how many is summoned at a time, or what special attacks they give the player. So be prepared to grind if you want the most powerful Legions. Legions have two different states, passive and aggressive, and can be switched at any time. You'll notice Sieg slows down when Legions are summoned, walking around like he's going to the shops. So the player has to manage their own health and the health of the Legions, and if the Legion's health reaches 0, it takes a long time to restore them as you kill enemies. This means when Legions are summoned, you need to be both attacking enemies and keeping an eye on your Legion, and strategizing when it's best to pull them back. Every Legion grants Sieg an assist that can be used at the cost of a soul bar when the Legion isn't summoned. For example, Malice, you'll slash the enemy into the air and they'll come out and start shooting them. Flawed, you set down a trap, which when an enemy triggers, they'll get attacked. Hatred gives you a counter, and every enemy has a different counter animation, which I think is really cool. But by far the best one is Ignorant Masses, given to you by the Thanatos Legion, which basically is Zawardo. You stop time and all enemies take massive amounts of damage. Some Legion attacks are more devastating than others, so using them at the right time is critical, as the soul meter is not only the amount of assist you have, but also the health of your Legion, so using lots of soul gaze in assist attacks and in summoning might not be the best idea. Also, Legions offer a passive benefit, such as a double jump, an extended combo, double range of the lock-on, and allowing you to pull enemies towards you, and like a ground stomp move where everything explodes around you. While these are limited to the Legions you currently have equipped, you can use power-ups and a lot of XP to allow these powers to be active even if the Legion is unequipped. Seed doesn't gain XP like his Legions do, and instead receives boosts to his stats depending on the equipped Legions. There are also power-ups that boost stats and are applied immediately on pickup and will remain active after you beat the level. However, if you die, you lose any power-ups you received in that level, and you will need to recollect them. There's also a level where you can play as the Nun Gun, and she is broken as hell as she can literally lie on her back and kill everything with the aid of a turbo controller. The level becomes super trivial, but more fun as you blast away at enemies that gave you a hard time earlier. Of course, she is never this useful in cutscenes, and was almost killed by a few monsters before you meet her. In fact, I really like this cutscene, as the way it's directed, it looks like Z kills her instead of the monster. Surprisingly, even though you have literal demons to help you in this game, it's super difficult, even on normal difficulty. A few hits will kill you, and unlike other action games, enemies will attack you from off screen, making the minimap a necessity. Your reward for beating the levels on higher difficulties are an extra mode where you can play as a Nun Gun through the whole game, and a mode where everything dies in one hit, including you. Enemies in this game are a bit hit and miss in terms of design. At the start they are outlandish monsters, taking names from Irish mythology. You got your big spiders, you got your dog lizard, and giant half bird, half lizard, half shark monsters. But as you reach the end of the game, you will mostly be fighting guys in armor, guys with guns, or big guys in armor, which gets a bit disappointing. Speaking of disappointing, the bosses in this game aren't too great. It starts fine with two bosses with their own gimmicks, but eventually you end up fighting the same bosses but with more health. I mean, the third boss is just the second boss, but you have to fight it 6 times now. I know this is Capcom, who is known for repeat bosses, but this is too much even for them. One of the reasons I think this game isn't as popular as it should be is because Sieg is a very boring main character. Usually in these sorts of action games, the main character has a plethora of charisma, but Sieg lacks that. One of the ways I think they could have rectified this is by giving the player a taunt. Usually in these action games, you are given a taunt not only to make the enemy more aggressive and attack you, but also if you want to test your luck and be a little bit cheeky. They can do a lot of cool things with this, and it allows the programmer and the designer to give that character a little bit more personality. To help you deal with the at time Muso-like levels of enemies, each enemy has its own weak spot and counter windows. You can kill the giant dog lizards in one hit if they're rolling in a ball and you hit them in mid-air. These weak points not only deal massive damage, but also increase the amount of XP you get if killed with that attack. Chaos Legion comes with a high recommendation from me, and I hope more people play it so it gets at least a cult following the likes of Beautiful Joe and Godhand have obtained. While it is not available at the moment on any current platforms via services like PlayStation Now and the like, and I doubt Capcom have any plans on reviving a franchise that's over a decade old when they are having trouble utilising the ones they have now, I'd rather this game go unnoticed than become a mobile game, so go ahead and dust off your PS2s and give this game a go. Or you could go and emulate it or whatever.